Hi everyone, Tanya Hertz here. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the entrepreneurial mindset and the knowledge, the experience, the passion, the all of the personality, the skills that are involved in starting a successful business. And I should say this: entrepreneurs are not just one type of person. They're not one type of personality. They're not one particular skill set. It takes all different kinds of people to be an entrepreneur and to be a successful entrepreneur. That said, there is a lot of research that's been done over the last 30 or so years that shows that there are correlative studies between certain personality types and success in entrepreneurship. Certain levels of cognitive ability or education or background that tell us a little something about whether or not someone will be successful as an entrepreneur. There are certain traits that are important in entrepreneurship. That does not mean that if you do not have those traits that you cannot be successful as an entrepreneur. It just means that if you don't have them, you have to do something else to make up for that lack of any one of those things. So, and then, like I said, we'll also talk about the entrepreneurial mindset as well. Now, when we're referring to these keeps, play it for keeps, right? In entrepreneurship, what we're really talking about is human capital, right? That's all of these, this bankroll of everything that everything that the founding members know and who they are and how they are. And these can have a tremendous impact on whether or not a venture is successful. Things like grit and perseverance and passion all make a difference. And at every stage of the process, these variables do play a role, and these keeps are the individual level variables. These are the micro level variables, but macro variables also play a significant role in whether or not we're successful. So and by macro, they can be large macro, such as the societal level variables, like what's going on right now in the economy, and what went on back in 2008 in the economy, what's happening with the current administration compared to previous administrations. But then we also have that group level variable that has an impact. The families that we come from, where we get the ideas from, how big is and how, not just big, but how established, how diverse, how good is the entrepreneurial ecosystem in which the entrepreneur is operating, right? Do they have access to incubators, accelerators? Do they have interaction with people who could potentially fund their business? And there's a saying in entrepreneurship, if you've never seen this, the 3 F's before. The 3 F's are where we get money as early entrepreneurs at idea stage. And that's friends, family, and fools are the only people who give entrepreneurs money in the beginning. Difficult to get money from a bank, right? All right. So let's go through and talk about each of the different components of those keeps, individual level variables. K is the knowledge, that is the cognitive ability of the entrepreneurs. Cognitive ability is how intelligent we are, right? Cognitive ability has been shown in correlative studies to be a strong predictor of both job performance across a variety of occupations, and also of entrepreneurial success. And that includes longevity, so how long the company sticks around, right? As well as profitability, how much money you make. And so cognitive ability is important, how smart you are. It's in fact one of the strongest predictor of these types of outcomes of all of the different variables that you can look at. And cognitive ability includes a lot of different facets. And entrepreneurs score high in general, successful entrepreneurs score higher in cognitive ability across all of the facets, and we call that the general cognitive ability or overall cognitive ability. We score higher than the general population, higher than managers, higher than even executive managers in organizations. And there are facets within that successful entrepreneurs also score higher. Verbal ability, entrepreneurs tend to score high in verbal ability. That includes oral comprehension, written comprehension, oral expression, and written expression rather. So that's how well you can speak and how well you can write and how well you can understand what is spoken to you and what is written. And usually there's a correlation amongst those four, but not always. There are some conditions like dyslexia, which can affect that connection between the four facets within the verbal ability facet. And what's really interesting is entrepreneurs tend to actually, well, they think differently, and they are creative people, but they also tend to often be dyslexic. You see this in a much higher percentage than the general population. So there are a lot of interesting intricacies surrounding entrepreneurship. So quantitative ability is our ability, both number facility and mathematical reasoning. Number facility is your ability to, so if you see a mathematical equation, your ability to actually solve that equation, where mathematical reasoning is your ability to know which equation to actually use to solve a problem. Reasoning is one of the facets where we as entrepreneurs score very high typically. This is our problem sensitivity, deductive and inductive reasoning, originality, creative thinking. In fact, when you combine cognitive ability with personality, you get creativity. You get creativity, and we as entrepreneurs do tend to score very high in that. And I'm not going to go too much into the details of the different types of reasoning. Suffice it to say, well, maybe I'll just quickly, deductive reasoning is when we start with a thesis, an idea, and then we find support to validate those assumptions or that hypothesis. Where inductive reasoning is where you don't start with that thesis. Instead, you look at the evidence first, and then you come to a conclusion. Right? Spatial ability is your ability to visualize, your ability to know where you are in space. It's called proprioception, when we know where our body is in relative to the environment around us. Entrepreneurs, again, they tend to score very high in spatial ability, particularly their ability to visualize things that other people can't see, right? To look at a situation, an idea, a problem, and to see the solution, and then to be able to execute on that vision. If you combine spatial ability rather with verbal ability, you're able then to articulate that visualization of an idea that you see to others, and you can get people on board your team and to follow you and to start a company with you, and very often work for no money in the very beginning, or maybe for the promise of future equity or something like this, right? Perceptual ability is our ability to react quickly, flexibility, speed of perception, and speed of closure. So you see a blinking light, you know what that light means, and you react. Again, this is in entrepreneurship, what's relevant is you see what's happening in the environment, you see what trends are taking place, you see what's happening with business, with the economy, with the coronavirus, and you say, what do I do? How can I react to this particular problem? And entrepreneurs are good at reacting to problems. They never settle. They never They never are just sitting back comfortable and saying, okay, I'm here, I've made it, right? You're always reacting, and the faster they react, usually the more successful they are. All right. So like I said, entrepreneurs, they're different than the general population. They might have a better way of identifying complexities in such a way that they become simple, right? So they'll recognize patterns in complex trends and changes and things that are happening in the world. They'll see a pattern in there. They'll see an opportunity. There's that saying, where others see problems, entrepreneurs see opportunities. That's absolutely true. And there's research as to why this happens, why entrepreneurs are better at doing this. A lot of it does have to do with their cognitive ability, but then there are other factors at play as well. Excuse me. We know that cognitive ability plays a role in venture success, and a lot of that might have to do with the fact that cognitive ability is correlated with education levels, and higher cognitive abilities subsequently obtain higher levels of education, and higher levels of education have a positive influence on performance. So cognitive ability has an indirect positive influence on venture performance, and we can see then why that correlation is there. So we also know that in many correlative studies, we see that there is, empirical studies, we see that there's a correlation, a positive correlation between higher education, getting more degrees, learning more, and not just degrees, I should say that, it's education of any kind, learning more, getting more education leads to higher levels of profitability, again, increased longevity of companies. You tend to have a better reputation in the community when you have more education. Employees tend to be more satisfied working for people with higher levels of education. And there's a lot going on behind that, and I'm not going to speculate here, but just tell you what the research is, and I'll let you do the speculating. So it's not just that excuse me, entrepreneurs have greater access to information. They're also better at using the information. They have better and more and richer knowledge bases. They are better at identifying opportunities and problems. They have higher cognitive ability. They get that, that access to that information in different ways, though. They don't, they have that better information, but they get that through their education, right? Through the work that they've had, through their jobs, through their life experiences. And then it's also not just the human capital, but it's the social capital. It's not just what we know, but it's who we know. And so successful entrepreneurs have recognized the importance of having a broad and diverse social network. It's a really excellent way for entrepreneurs to shorten the amount of time it takes for them to be successful, and to eliminate a lot of the problems that they would have gone through if they had not talked to other people. So entrepreneurs are good at reaching out to other people and asking, what would you do in this situation? What did you do in that situation before? Have you ever seen anything like this? And so they're constantly talking to one another. They're constantly going to different events. They're networking. You know, if you've been in my class, how much I push networking and being linked on LinkedIn. Entrepreneurs use LinkedIn quite a bit. And that's not the only way that we build up those networks. So remember before when we were talking about where new ideas come from, or where gazelle ideas, ideas that become big, fast-growing companies, they come from prior knowledge. They come from our work experience, our life experience, our hobbies, things like that. And so having that experience is important. Entrepreneurs tend to travel a lot more than the general population. So like I said, it's not just what we know, our human capital, our bankroll of keeps, but it's who we know, our ties to others, the relationship, the reputations, everything that we bring with us to the new venture. And we talked about this before, but entrepreneurship is a small world. We very often know each other, and a lot of entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs, and we like hanging out with other entrepreneurs because there are a few other people who can tolerate the craziness and the way of looking at the world, like an endless source of opportunity. And I love being around other entrepreneurs personally. They're they're passionate people, and they don't mind that I'm a little weird, and they all tend to be a little weird themselves. Now this is anecdotal. I shouldn't do this. I should focus on the research, but I'll throw in a little anecdotal as well. I know just from close to over a decade of teaching entrepreneurship that you get a lot of misfits in entrepreneurship, a lot of people who just didn't fit in accounting or in finance or in any one thing. And they might even thought that they didn't like school, but they're smart people. And when you have a highly intelligent person that doesn't like school, it's probably because they're balking against the ridiculous managers maybe that they've met in their life, or the oversight that they just don't like. They want the autonomy, they want freedom, and that's why they tend to do very well in entrepreneurship. So I see a lot of students who were maybe not great students when they came in, although extremely bright, and then all of a sudden they found their passion, they found their calling, and that's entrepreneurship. So founding team, I've said this before, usually when we start a new business, we start it as a team. So if you're missing something in the keeps, don't worry, somebody else should have it. It's good to have a diverse team of founders that share a common vision and share the deep level, deep on the deep level, they're similar, and then with the keeps, they're diverse. So we're a P for personality. Personality is important. Personality has an impact on whether or not we're successful. When we're talking about personality, we're talking about what people are like, not what they know or what they can do. And when we talk about personality, you think of traits, right? There are thousands of different traits that people can have. These are responses to the way, responses to their environment, responses to any given situation. How do people regularly respond? And this is largely a function of both genes and the environment. So it's nature and nurture. And so there was this question in entrepreneurship research forever: are entrepreneurs born or are they made? Well, yeah, both, right? A little of both. But there is no single stereotypical, prototypical entrepreneur. We come in all shapes and we come in all sizes. We do know that about a little less than 50% of our personality comes from genetics. And the way that we know that is we look at things like, we ask questions like, are you introverted? Are you extroverted? Right? So are your parents introverted or extroverted? And let's say, and the reason we usually ask extroversion is because it's usually the one that people know about themselves, even if they're not really self-aware. They know whether or not they tend to be introverted or extroverted. So when people say, yes, I'm like my parents, then you think, okay, well then this is nature, right? Or is this nurture? Or what is this? Is it genetics or the environment? Well, the way that we know is through twin studies. And scientists have been researching identical twins that are reared apart forever, for decades. And so when we look at these twin studies, we can isolate the variables and look at the variation in personality and say that about 35 to 49% of the variation in personality is genetics. Extroversion has the strongest genetic component. The same is true for a lot of the other keeps that we're talking about. Things like knowledge, cognitive ability is one of the larger, has one of the larger genetic components. Over 60% of your cognitive ability is it's genetic, and then beyond that, it's a lot of it is choice, right? How long do you study? What do you study? So there's thousands of ways that we can use to describe human beings, but generally the traits, these adjectives cluster around 5 big personality traits or dimensions, and we can classify them as evidenced here: conscientiousness, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness, and extraversion. That can spell canoe or ocean or whatever else there. And conscientiousness is an individual's ability to, or not ability, but how dependable they are, how organized they are, how they do what they say they're going to do, right? Conscientious people are the kind of people that you want on your team, right? These are the people that they say they're going to be there, and even if they're exhausted and just dog tired, they show up, right? Conscientious people are ambitious, they're hardworking, they persevere, they strive for accomplishment. This is reflective in their personality. Goal seeking, goal achievement. It's part of who they are, right? They want to accomplish goals. And there are a lot of studies on this. There's one study that I thought was interesting. Salespeople who are conscientious, they're the ones who set higher goals for themselves. But not only that, they actually achieve those goals. Conscientiousness is negatively correlated with mortality across a myriad of different causes, including heart disease, cancer, motorcycle accidents, all sorts of different things, because conscientious people know to buckle up. They know to go to the doctor, the dentist, whether or not they even want to go. They know that they should go, so they do it, right? So entrepreneurs generally score very high in conscientiousness. Agreeable people, this is another dimension of personality that we tend to score somewhat high in agreeableness, higher than the general population, but not as high as some certain industries or some occupations. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we need entrepreneurs to be agreeable, because you have to get people to work on your team or work for very little money, maybe at first. And so conscientious people are people that really strive community over self. They're the helpers in society. Again, we don't score extremely high in general, successful entrepreneurs, but they do score high. Extroverted individuals tend to be talkative, bold, gregarious, outgoing, dominant, assertive. They are usually the kind of people who are striving for status and power and influence, and they tend to emerge as leaders. They tend to, here it says they're the easiest to judge in zero acquaintance situations. That means a situation where you've never met somebody before. Usually within a few minutes, you will know whether or not that person identifies as extrovert or introvert. We tend to like working with extroverts. They tend to be rated as more effective as leaders, even if they aren't more effective. People like being around extroverts to a certain extent. And we do know now a little bit more about extroversion, in that you can fake extroversion. You can pretend to be extroverted and get the same benefits that extroverts get without actually necessarily always wanting to be extrovert. There are sometimes sometimes they're referred to as introverted extroverts, right? People who when they're around people, they enjoy being around people, but they also like the quiet time. They like to be alone at the end of the day, to read a book, things like this. So that's why the Myers-Briggs isn't used as much as it was before, because it doesn't really get to extroversion well. So neurotic individuals, neuroticism is negatively correlated with success in general for most jobs. Neurotic people tend to be moody, emotional. They tend to be a little bit insecure. They tend to be a little bit maybe more argumentative than they need to be. A lot of nerves. They tend to have a strong external locus of control. So meaning that they'll say, if something happens that the cause is external, if it's a negative outcome, where if it's a positive outcome, it's internal. So for example, if we're late to a meeting, we say, oh, traffic was bad. Where if somebody else was late, we might say, oh, they're lazy, right? Interestingly, this is one of those idiosyncrasies of entrepreneurship, is entrepreneurs tend to score fairly high in neuroticism. They tend to be pretty neurotic individuals. I don't know why that is, but usually that's negatively correlated with performance. So make your own assumption or assessment as to why that is. Now, openness to experience is actually strongly correlated with entrepreneurial success, especially when it comes to creativity, creative performance, innovation, problem solving. And open individuals, they tend to be curious, they're imaginative. These are the people who like to drink craft beer instead of Bud Light, right? They tend to be more liberal. They tend to be more refined, more sophisticated. And interestingly, this is, I think I've told, we were talking about this in one of the classes recently. There have been many studies on whether or not we can predict political affiliation based on genetics. And we can, to a large degree, and with a high degree of accuracy, and it's based on openness to experience, right? Because part of it is genetic, and so we can tell genetically whether or not somebody is more likely to vote for Trump or vote for Bernie Sanders when they're born, based on this facet of personality. Okay, so yeah. This is tied to correlation. It's an important factor in opportunity recognition. These are people who are tolerant of other cultures. They travel, they eat food. They're good food. They're the kind of people who are taking photos of their food at restaurants. They enjoy the finer things in life, right? Now, these facets of personality are often tested by companies that care about innovation and care about entrepreneurial, the entrepreneurial mindset or entrepreneurial qualities. Companies like Google, IDEO, they all test for openness to experience, as well as a few other things. So other traits of entrepreneurs, they do tend to have not as much risk aversion as the general population. So they understand that there is risk anytime you start a company, and they're willing to take a little bit of risk. They're not totally just risk takers, because often it's our own money that we're risking, but they do have at least some tolerance for risk. Entrepreneurs that are successful know how to delegate. They know not just how to delegate tasks, but how to delegate decisions. They tend to be creative. They tend to be optimistic. They think they can get things done even when the evidence does not support that they can get it done. And that can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. They can go too far. And I was saying before, there are some really interesting sort of idiosyncrasies of entrepreneurs, and I thought I'd share some of them. We saw a study of the Kauffman Foundation found that 35% of successful entrepreneurs, 35% are dyslexic. they have at least some form of dyslexia that is much higher than the general population. So people like Richard Branson, the CEO of Virgin, is dyslexic. You know, this might have to do with the way that they store information, the way that they access information, and the way that they develop skills to compensate for certain deficits or certain differences in the way that they think. And you also see a lot of entrepreneurs who, they're entrepreneurs because they faced some sort of really serious either health or personal tragedy in their life, and they see things differently as a result, and they do things differently as a result. So again, entrepreneurs are an interesting breed. So skills and ability are the final components. That includes both soft and hard skills. Abilities and skills are, again, functions of genetic and abilities are functions of genetics and environment. Skills are shorter term in nature. They're not as stable. You know, you think of ability like cognitive ability. You know, that's something that takes years to develop. A skill might be something that you can learn over the course of a weekend. It's possible to teach a skill, to measure a skill. Hard skills that entrepreneurs need might include things like being able to, let's see, good hard skill. Oh, maybe to use PowerPoint. Right? Most of us need to develop some sort of a pitch deck, and so that's a hard skill that we would develop. We need to maybe know how to use a laser cutter machine so that we can print T-shirts quickly, or, you know, it's silly things like this. They're not silly, but design is another hard skill. They're important, but the soft skills are even more important. So soft skills are skills that are translatable across industries and across types of companies. So that last question that I showed there, are entrepreneurs born or are they made? Well, it's a combination, and it takes all types. But if you're lacking something, you can take a class, you can learn a little bit more about a particular area in which you're lacking, or you can bring on people who know. You can also talk to mentors, advisors, and others who can help you along the path to being successful entrepreneurs. Hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and talk to you all later. Bye.